I surrender and volunteer for treason.
We have more legislation passed, including the record was Harry Truman a long time ago, and we broke that record, so we have a lot done.
Hard to hear a little bit, but it's not true what the president said just there. Historians and fact checkers have been rebutting that false claim from President Trump. He said it today. He also made the same claim last week when he signed the tax bill. Here is the actual deal, Mr. President. A lie is still a lie, no matter how many times you tell it, and we'll show you why you should know this is a lie. According to GovTrack, Donald Trump has signed 94 bills since taking office. That is a historic low compared to his 9 predecessors. When it comes to Trump's claim that he topped Harry Truman's specific record, also untrue. In fact, take it from the Truman Library, which said we don't have an exact figure, but around 240 to 250, that's according to the statutes at large. Congress passed 292 bills in that whole session. You could subtract from January to April minus a few vetoes, which gets you to that figure. They are, as we say, in the weeds showing Donald Trump was not telling the truth. What about his other achievement as the most unpopular president in the history of national polling? Well, according to a new Gallup poll, there's insult on top of injury, because Americans in a separate question, apart from approval, have also separately named President Barack Obama today as the most admired man. This is the 10th time he's gotten that honor. Obama also won all 8 years he was president, and 2008, of course, when he was coming into the office. This also marks the first time since 2008, ouch, Donald Trump, a sitting president didn't top the list. And here's another little factoid. Americans voted Hillary Clinton the most admired woman for the 16th year in a row. It might be because people, and not the Electoral College, are involved in this particular survey. I'm joined now, as promised, more life, more joy, Joy Reid, working late, and back with me, Tim O'Brien. Joy, I want all the feelings. I want all your analysis of this. But these polls are funny because, as you know, they often just follow who's president. Because people, it's like Billy Eichner, Billy on the Street, when he puts a mic in people's face on camera and he says, name a person, you go, the president. Right. But that tendency has run into a brick wall for some reason this year.
And it's interesting, no matter which way you look at the poll, whether you look at it as true admiration or just name ID, it's going to drive Donald Trump insane either way. And Tim is the better expert on Donald Trump's psyche, but the reality is Donald Trump is either less popular and loved by than Barack Obama, which drives him crazy because he's obsessed, negatively obsessed with Obama, or he's less well known than Barack Obama.
Well, that hurts. That also would hurt.
It's painful.
And on the women, because the way Gallup asks, they ask about most admired man, most admired women. You have Hillary Clinton up there, Michelle Obama right behind her. Behind her, Oprah Winfrey, Elizabeth Warren, and then Angela Merkel. You think about Alabama, where women, and specifically African-American women, were so key to changing the state red to blue. What does it say that so many of the women on this list, this question to both of you, seem to be of the left or center-left persuasion?
Well, I mean, I think we'll find out what that means when the midterms roll around. I think you can set your watch right now to how long it'll take for Donald Trump to start tweeting about this poll, because I agree with Joy. I do think it drives him nuts, and he's ranked below a woman he lost, or a woman he defeated in a presidential election, and the president he succeeded. This kind of stuff grates at him, and it's right where he lives. And he'll dismiss the polls as lacking credibility. He tends to cite polls that favor him as being more credible than those that don't. But the reality is this is going to drive him nuts.
And Gallup is, sort of the gold standard. At least it's a slightly Republican-leaning poll. It's a very sort of middle America poll. It's not a lefty public policy poll. So I think it's got to hurt. I got to acknowledge Beyonce. Bey got on the poll. She had to get on the poll. Absolutely.
Wait, let me find it.
She's on number 10.
Number 10.
She was number 10, tied with Melania. Melania didn't make it too. She was tied with Beyonce. But I mean, the reality is the fact that there were 3 women of color on the poll, 3 African-American women, I think is significant. The admiration that people have for people like, actually more than 3. Condoleezza Rice is on there as well. You also have Nikki Haley, who's a woman of color, Beyonce Knowles. So it does show that there is a greater diversity in terms of who people know and who people care about
and admire,
and who people admire. And that is not good news for the Republican Party, which is still essentially the party of older white America.
Right, and in terms of the people that they're putting forward. I want to play President Obama's interview here. Joy, you're big online. I mean, you're big on TV and online. But he actually did something that Barack Obama often does, which is not just cater to what people might want to hear or come up with a bumper sticker. He kind of here, we're at the end of the year, he used this discussion with Prince Harry, and you know, and have covered and spent time around the Obamas. I think he's very thoughtful when he does do an address or a speech or an interview. He clearly wanted to make a point about the polarizing and anti-reality elements of the internet.
One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases. A good way of fighting against that is making sure that online communities don't just stay online, that they move offline. You find areas of common ground because you see that things aren't as simple as have been portrayed in whatever chat room you've been in. It's also, by the way, harder to be as obnoxious and cruel in person as people can be anonymously on the internet.
You know, Barack Obama is a canny individual. I mean, he is both like disdainful of what social media and the internet can do, but he also ran the most internet and tech savvy campaign that we've seen in modern history. And he wound up once again in the top 10 tweets of the year because he's really savvy about the way he uses social media. He uses it to try to bring people together, to put forth this message of his belief in the country and the institutions. He uses this basically in the opposite way that Donald Trump does, and he's more successful at Twitter than Trump, which will also drive Trump crazy.
Also, we're reminded yet again that Barack Obama is rational, classy, sophisticated, and well-spoken. And it's how we want presidents to be. Whether you agree with him politically, ideologically, or are of the same party, there is a marked difference between the way this ex-president rolls and the way the current one rolls, both online and offline.
You know, there's a way, Ari, in which Barack Obama is, in a sense, if you think of the presidency as a national avatar, Obama is who we hope we are, and Donald Trump is who we fear we are, right? That there's something sort of guttural about Trumpism, where it's like playing to all of your base fears of other people, your anger, your rage, your neediness, the core of his need and this black hole inside himself is kind of what America fears like the crass part of ourselves is becoming. Whereas Barack Obama is the emblem of what presidencies used to be, the Eisenhower model, the sort of, you know, model of the presidency as aspirational.
And above the fray.
And above the fray.
Yeah. You know, Barack Obama is not a guy who's going to freak out about where he stands in a Gallup poll. He's very comfortable in his own skin. He knows who he is. He's very well aware of what his talents are. And that's not Donald Trump.
Well, and Joy, you make a deeper point, as you so often do, that politics is not only about what we want to do with our resources or our country, right? But it's really who we want to be.
Yeah.
And there is a superficial appeal to Trumpism. Because it reminds me of the Joker in Batman when he says, well, you know, you're only as good as you're allowed to be.
Right.
And maybe we should all just be worse. And that can be appealing, at least for a moment, until you say, wait a minute, does everyone want to live in that environment, what some would call lowest common denominator?
Well, in that sense, Donald Trump is a lot like the president he seems to most admire, Andrew Jackson, who had that similar sort of, you know, I'm a populist, although he actually did fight in the war when he was available to do so and didn't get bone spurs, etc. But, you know, Andrew Jackson was this horrible figure, this venal, you know, quasi-populist, but who was also violent, sort of genocidal, and indulged this sort of desire for violence in the American public at that time. Whereas you've had other models for the presidency, the Teddy Roosevelt swashbuckling model of fighting the big trusts and busting them up. Or, you know, again, think about Eisenhower. You think about FDR, the sort of national dad who's like going to bring us back from, you know, the depths of the Depression. Donald Trump doesn't want to be any of those kind of models. He wants to be Andrew Jackson. He wants to indulge our sense of violence. And that, to me, is not healthy in a presidency.
Right, and that goes to why, as you put it, we think about 2017, we reflect on this year, so much menacing language, so much aggressive language, picking fights with individuals that, before this presidency, were considered off limits for good reason, Gold Star families, and you kind of say at the end of the year, let's think as a country who we want to be off limits and not have it all be normalized. Joy Reid, I'm going to say it again. It's what we do at TV 10. We drive things into the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, and Joy just said, just so everyone heard under her breath, yes, you do. More life, more joy. Joy Reid, Tim O'Brien, thank you both for a very interesting discussion. Coming up, even some Trump supporters experiencing something that is called, yes, technically, Trump exhaustion. Democrats think it could help next year.